Great architect of the universe, we gather here tonight in fellowship and gratitude, under the light of your guidance, to honor the brave men and women who have selflessly served our country. We are grateful for their sacrifices, their courage, and their dedication to the cause of freedom and peace. Bless this gathering with unity, humility, and respect as we celebrate their service. We ask you to bless the food that has been prepared, that it may nourish our bodies as your wisdom nourishes our souls. May this evening bring us closer in spirit and purpose as we remember the sacred bond of brotherhood and service to humanity. In your infinite wisdom and love, we place this event under your divine care. Amen.
For those of you that are able, if you would remain standing for the posting of our colors, the flag of the United States.
Left, face. Bravo. Sacramento Commandery number 2 has the honor and the privilege of presenting to you the beloved flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Standard bearer, furl the colors. Color guard, carry, swords. About face. Color guard. About face.
Following the posting of our colors, we all must remember that there are those who went to war and fight and did not return. There are those as well, as we all know, if I could draw your attention to the front corner of this room. POW, MIA, it is now being illuminated. We remember, we will never forget. Briefly, I just want you to know that we have a POW in attendance this evening. Retired Colonel Joe Peterburs. He's accompanied by his granddaughter, Sabrina Peterburs, and friend and of the family, J.D. Sosnick. Sir, if you're comfortable, would you rise and be recognized?
First, I want to thank you for being my granddad. At the age of 15, Joe was going to be a priest. He was in the seminary, he was studying to be a priest. And I thank God that he didn't become a priest because, wouldn't be here. But Pearl Harbor happened, and he was in the rec room at the time, and he heard that Pearl Harbor had just been hit, and he knew right then that he was leaving the seminary and he was going to enter the military. We'll flash forward a few years. He entered Army Air Corps. He became a pilot, fighter pilot, escorting bombers in World War II in Europe. And on his 49th and final mission over Oranienburg, Germany, he was escorting several bombers and turbojet Me-262s, which were Germany's jets, which were something that the P-51 Mustangs had not seen. They came and hit the bombers, and Grandpa had witnessed one particular Me-262 take out several jets within seconds. and he decided he had some altitude on him, so he was going to try to catch him, and luckily he hit him a few times, but then he lost him in the cloud bank. He had some altitude, that's how he was able to get some shots, and lost him in a cloud bank, and then went on, found a rail yard and decided to strafe the rail yard. So he shot up the rail yard a few too many times. Like he says, the fighter pilot's motto was one pass and all ass, but unfortunately he made 5. He got hit by ground fire, and he had to head as far away as he possibly could, knowing that he was going to have to crash. He was immediately captured and taken in, went on a 50-mile march to the prisoner camp, and he was able to escape the prisoner camp. Now, this was April 10th, 1945, so we are toward the end of the war. But there were still things happening where his life was in danger, as were all the other POWs and soldiers. He was able to escape and met up with the Russian tank crew, Soviet tank unit. And one funny thing I think about that story is that he said he was never so drunk in his life from fighting with the Russians, because after every battle or every night, they had to drink vodka, right? And my grandpa's going to be 100 years old on Monday, the 25th. So we're super pleased to be here. I want to say to everyone here that we appreciate your service in any shape or form. It means a lot to us that we're involved with veterans. Like everyone here, just want to appreciate you all so much, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to be here and be part of this. And I love you, Bob.
All right, now with that note, I'm going to call to the front Chief Master Sergeant Honorable Richard Wilson, and narration by Brother James Mamet. We will do the POW ceremony.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you entered the room this evening, you may have noticed a small table in a place of honor. It is set for one and will now be explained. The military caste is filled with symbolism, and this table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called prisoner of war and missing in action. We call them our brothers, fathers, sisters, mothers, husbands, wives, and friends. They gave their lives in defense of this great nation, our ideals, and our way of life. They are unable to be with us this day, and so we remember them because of their sacrifice and incarceration. The table is small and set for one, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against the oppressor and our everlasting concern for our missing man. The chair is empty, but saved for their hope return. Remember, the tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember, the candle is lit, symbolizing the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home to the open arms of a grateful nation. Remember, the black ribbon on the candle reminds us of those who will not be coming home. Remember, the single red rose displayed in the vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. Remember, the yellow ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the yellow ribbon worn on the lapels and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember, a slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land. Remember, there is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the tears endured by those missing and their families as they wait. Remember, the Holy Bible represents the strength gained through faith to sustain those lost from our country, founded as one nation under God. Remember, the wine glass is inverted, symbolizes their inability to toast with us this evening. Remember, until the day they come home, remember. Ladies and gentlemen, as your respective service is called, please stand and remain standing so you may be recognized. Members and veterans of the United States Army, members and veterans of the United States Marine Corps, members and veterans of the United States Navy, members and veterans of the United States Air Force, members and veterans of the United States Space Force, members and veterans of the United States Coast Guard, members and veterans of the United States Merchant Marine. If you will all please rise, as the flame of this candle is extinguished, let us transfer its flame to our hearts and remember. If we can give a round of applause for our veterans and members of service. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our POW and MIA ceremony. You may now all be seated. Thank you very much.
All right. I told you that we would stand with a moment of silence at the end of that. I know you just sat. We have one more standing because we will have a national anthem following our moment of silence. So if you would, one more time again, please, before dinner service, stand.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? God bless America.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. All right, the time has come for eating. We are going to start with our VIP table, please. If you will make your way over to the buffet line.
Those of you who have served as a vet and are veterans, all of us basically signed up to do something that a lot of people don't do. We're willing to stand behind our country no matter what, whether it be giving our lives, driving a truck, serving in combat. Unfortunately, I was one of the crazy ones that wanted to be a combat soldier. My family was military. My uncle was special forces during Vietnam, and after that, my dad was a communications officer in the Navy. I felt compelled to serve because my family had served. My dad's brother was in the Army and served in Germany during Vietnam. He did not have to serve in Vietnam. My uncle did. My uncle was a special forces captain in Vietnam back in the early 60s. I remember growing up and being in family reunions where my uncle would take on all of the kids, and there was 40 of us, and he would kick the crap out of us. I wanted to be like him. I worked hard. I enlisted when I was 17. My parents had to sign my paperwork, and they said, good, get out. I was kind of a problem child, but it made me grow up. I signed up for a combat MOS, which no longer exists in the U.S. Army. I was what they call 11 Hotel. I was a tow missile gunner. My job was to take a vehicle, a Humvee, that had absolutely no armor, and go kill tanks that had all kinds of armor. So our life expectancy rate was very low. I excelled at it. I thrived. I was lucky enough to become an airborne ranger. I was lucky enough to get into Special Forces School because of my uncle, but I was honor graduate at every school I went to. I was honor graduate out of basic training. I was honor graduate out of airborne school. I was honor graduate out of ranger school. I was honor graduate out of Special Forces School. And for Special Forces School, you're talking about an attrition rate where we had 260 guys go to the school and 11 graduated. To be honor graduate means I was the best of the best of the best. I attained a rank of E6 by the time I was 19, which is unheard of in the military. It was at a time when everything was based on points, not on how old you were. It was based on merit and what you did, not because you were 26. I got lucky enough that I had a captain that was in charge of me as an E6 that said, you are worth training. We want to send you something else. I got to go to OCS at a very young age because E7 was congressional. It means Congress has to approve you to go to E7. At 19, it was a career killer. I got to go to the OCS, graduated, became an officer, took over Special Forces Group. My first combat action, 6 weeks after I graduated, we ended up dropping into Kuwait during the first Persian Gulf War. We had the assignment of bringing the U.S. ambassador out of Kuwait to protect him. I've not looked back since. The military has done everything they can to make me who I am today. All I can do is thank the men in this room for doing the same thing that I have done, signing on that dotted line, giving everything they could for a country that, in my opinion, is the greatest there is. Thank you. I bring up the veteran stuff because it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Unfortunately, most people don't realize that veterans are not paid attention to in this country. A lot of veterans suffer from mental disabilities, physical disabilities. They're left behind. I've had several friends that are very near and dear to myself that have literally have committed suicide because they couldn't get the help that they should have gotten. Veterans nowadays live on the streets. They're not taken care of. They're not looked after. They become addicted to drugs. They become addicted to all kinds of bad things. Bringing awareness to that is a big deal. If you know of a veteran, it's very simple to get them help. If they're on the street, it basically dial 988 on your phone. It is a dedicated line now for veterans to help them get taken care of, get some help, get it to where they can no longer be on the streets, and get it to where they have something to stand up on. They deserve better than where they're at. This country has thrived on the way veterans are and where we're at and how we do things. They need to be taken care of. I urge you, if you know somebody, please 988, option 1, make a phone call. See if you can get them the help they deserve. They've earned that right. It's very funny because we go to places where we go to on Veterans Day, you get to go all these places that want to give you free food, but yet you have months devoted to other people that really, why? We get a day, they get a month. There's problems with that, in my opinion. With your help, caring and outreach, we can make a difference. Everybody who signed on the dotted line, we do it because we're brothers. Doesn't matter if we're Marines, Air Force, Army, Navy, Merchant Marines. We mess with each other. We were talking at the table. We mess with each other in the funnest ways possible. But yet, when it comes right down to it, I got your back, you got mine. I'll go to war with you. You know you got someone on your six that can take care of you. That's what we need to do to help our veterans and stuff that are on the streets, that need help, that don't have anybody to reach out for them and help them ask for help. Because it's really hard when you have addiction issues and mental issues. One of my closest friends, a gentleman that ran one of the largest special forces groups for a decade, killed himself because he couldn't get the help needed. We got to fix that. There are too many good men that have done so much for us that need help. So if there's a way we can help, that's the easiest way to do it. Make a phone call for them, because they're not going to ask for help. It's not, unfortunately, I hate to say it, it's not ingrained in us to ask for help. We can do it on our own. How do we fix that? It's called looking out for them. Have their six. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a great night.
When Jason asked me to speak tonight, I really gave some thought to what I would say. And I had a particular message I wanted to communicate tonight, so I actually prepared notes. Over the next few minutes, I hope to share with you my perspective on the importance of service and its circular nature. I'm convinced that the proverb, "what goes around comes around," is not always applicable in the negative. In fact, I think when we do wrong, yes, it is likely to catch up with us. But likewise, when we do good, it will come back to us. I learned the importance of service at a young age, not because I recognized or understood the examples that my parents provided to me, but because I experienced the good feelings that always accompany genuine service to others. This experience came to me through my membership in the Order of D. Malay, and it began when I was 13 years old. It truly shaped my future. Through my father's encouragement, I sought to join the military when I was 17, much like my brother, Colonel Dar. From an early age, I knew that the armed services would be a part of my future, though I didn't know how or why. I certainly didn't know it would be the Marine Corps. My dad was a bit taken aback when I told him I wanted to join the Marine Corps. He was a soldier in the 1950s, and he chose to enlist in the Army to avoid being drafted into the Marine Corps. And he was very quick to share that with me. As he was telling me, he thought I was kind of an idiot for choosing the Marine Corps. Being the know-it-all kid that I was, I discounted his perspective, certainly not for the first time nor the last. Though today I have to say I'm glad I did. I always enjoyed serving in uniform. I felt as though I was doing something important. And it made me feel better about myself, despite my own obvious shortcomings. While serving as an enlisted Marine, unlike my brother, Colonel Mark Darr, it took me 5 years to make E3. And there's a really good reason for that. If you knew me then, you would not be the least bit surprised. But I particularly enjoyed participating in programs, for instance, supporting the Navy Relief Society, supporting children whose family circumstances really didn't allow them to have a comfortable, peaceful life. I became involved in Toys for Tots, and back in the 1970s, it was a much different program than it is today. Most of you know about Toys for Tots. This was started in Los Angeles in the Marine Corps Reserve, and today it's a program where people donate new unwrapped toys to be donated to children who have a need, whose family can't afford to buy them gifts during the holidays. Back in the 70s, we collected anything anybody would donate to us. And I actually did that right here in Sacramento. When we got used toys, we took them to local fire departments, and the firemen would clean and repair those toys. They would wrap them up. We'd come and collect them from them, and we'd distribute them. And thereby, we were engaging other people in this wonderful expression of service. It was wonderful. I think it just cemented my conviction that service is something we all should engage in, no matter what form it takes. When I was a first lieutenant, I was introduced to Boy Scouts. I was not a scout when I was a kid. I was the fourth of 5 children. By the time I got old enough to join Scouts, my parents had had enough and said, nah, you'll have to find something else. We don't want to do this anymore. But an officer I was serving with in 29 Palms in the early 1980s had 2 sons who were in a scout troop there at the base at 29 Palms. And he knew I was a woodworker, and he said, we could really use your help. We need a merit badge counselor. Well, that's, of course, the hook, right? They get you started on something simple, and before I knew it, I was an assistant scoutmaster for the troop. And not only did I really feel a great sense of accomplishment and goodness by my service, I was actually able to get my new wife. Okay, yeah, I got married in 29 Palms. How stupid was that? But I got my new wife to join in the scouting program. We both went through scout leader training, and we both felt really good about it. We didn't have any children at the time. Without realizing, I seemed to be drawn into serving anyone who asked for help or who seemed to need help. The opportunities for service, as we all know, are endless. In 1984, I was ordered to Okinawa, and through that tour, I gained my first exposure to life outside of the United States and to people whose lives seemed to be completely different from our own. The more I got to know the Okinawan people, the more I started to recognize that we had a whole lot more in common than I was initially thinking. In fact, I began to realize that in most respects, we are all one human family. We all want the same things in life. We want a safe place to live, to raise our families. We want a job that allows us to support our families. We want to be free from tyranny. not just the tyranny of our government, but the tyrannical effects of crime. We all want the same thing, and I experienced this all over the world. Initially in Okinawa, but then in subsequent tours of duty in Korea, and even in war-torn Iraq, I found that to be true. As I opened my eyes to the essence of humanity, I started to realize that if you look for the good in people, you will find it. If you only see the bad, that's all you will ever see. My core belief in the essential goodness of humankind began to slip when I was posted to Kuwait in 2002, and especially when I was in Iraq in 2003. And I think it was because I saw some hard evidence of evil among human beings, something I hadn't previously been exposed to. The contrast was so stark that I just couldn't seem to reconcile the existence of evil in any human being. And how can we be good and bad? How can we have the capacity for such evil if we are essentially good beings? This change in my perspective was compounded when I was back in Iraq in 2006. And by the time I got home from that tour of duty, I was a completely different person. Emotionally, my perspective on humanity had taken an all-time low. And I'll tell you, I really had a hard time figuring out how to live as a peaceful human being. When I got back to the town my family lived in, little things, seemingly insignificant, would set me off. Instead of being a good-natured, optimistic person, I became an angry person. There is a happy ending to this story, so don't worry about it. I will get there. I'd like to say I'm almost done, but I'm really not, so hang in with me. But I was angry. And you know, the people who felt the greatest impact of the change in my personality and my emotional state were the people I was closest to, my friends, and especially my family. Without knowing why, I chose to throw myself into service. I now know why. It was the only thing I could do in my life that made me feel better about myself and that it was going to be okay. What goes around does come around. And when you are doing something good, good will come back to you. I was so committed to doing this that my family almost never saw me because I volunteered everywhere I could. And I now realize that what I was trying to do was outrun the post-traumatic stress that I had acquired in my service. And I can tell you, you can't outrun it. Some of our comrades in arms choose to hide it through excessive alcohol consumption or other substances. Some of them move off into the woods and live by themselves because they're the only person on the world that they can stand. You can't outrun it. And of course, when I do something, this is going to surprise every one of you, I just throw myself into it, right? You would never expect that of me. Those of you who saw me serve as Grand Master last year know what I mean by that, right? I was home 60 days out of 365 last year because they said, hey, here's an opportunity to serve. And I said, okay, I'm going to do the absolute best that I can. There's a cost to it. You have to have balance. Ultimately, there were people who were as devoted to service as I was, and they saw what I was doing and helped me to find my way back. And even though many veterans around us don't get the help they need, the help is there, and I was fortunate enough to get that help. I ultimately took 3.5 years of counseling every week, but I ultimately regained my faith in humanity. It was because of my true friendships in Freemasonry that I found the safe place I needed to help me recognize what was going on and how to overcome it, and to find that balance, because my true friends in Masonry don't lie to me. They always tell me how it is. They care enough about me to help me out of the trouble I'm in. And we, those of us in the room who are Masons, understand the truth of that. In some ways, I owe my life and the preservation of my family to this fraternity that has been such an integral part of my life, all of my adult life. Life is hard. No matter what we see on television or read on the internet or in print, we are all generally good. And we far outnumber those few who are truly bad. We simply need to focus on the good. Keep our faith. Keep helping those who need our help. Service is a privilege, and it is its own reward. As a young man in Demolay, I learned that all service is honorable and worthy of faithful performance. Be good, do good. Good will come back to you. Look for the good in everyone and cling to that. Doing so has a way of influencing people to live up to your aspirations for them and can shape our reality for the better. Perhaps what goes around really does come around. I thank you again for your invitation to join you here tonight in service, and I thank you for your kind attention. And you know what? The older I get, the more emotional I am. And you guys all think there's a jarhead colonel standing up here. How the hell can he cry? Well, you just saw it. It's nature, man.
We're just about done with the evening, but before we do, and I know you've already been recognized, we had all the veterans stand, but there's a little something that we want to do real quick. We have something, a gift for you. We will ask, again, the veterans of the room, if you're comfortable to do so, to please rise, and we're going to come around and give to you this small token of our appreciation. It is a small pocket watch. It says, United States Veteran, never forget. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you what you just saw on the video. This is from Mount Vernon, where you just saw. This is George Washington recipe whiskey from the still. They only make it twice a year. Colonel Dr. Mark Darr, this, sir, is yours. Colonel, this one we thought would be very for your palate. So this is one of the first runs where they talked about in the early 1900s they started charring. This one is one that they did age and char in the still in George Washington's distillery in Virginia. This is yours, sir. Woo! We prayed ourselves in, Blake. We're going to pray as we leave as well and bless us all and Again, from the bottom of my heart, it's been my honor to put this together. It's been my honor to share it with all of you. And it's just my honor to just be in this place at this time. And like I used to tell my kids all the time, on purpose, for a purpose, by design. It's not an accident. We are here and we're meant to be. So thank you all. Bye.
Great architect of the universe, as we conclude this evening of fellowship and remembrance, we lift our hearts in gratitude for the lives and sacrifices of those who we've honored tonight. May their example inspire us to serve one another and our communities with greater dedication. Bless those who have gathered here, especially our veterans and their families, with peace, strength, and hope. Guide us safely to our homes, and may your light continue to shine upon our labors as we seek to build a better world under the principles of Freemasonry. Amen.